Jimmy.
Dan, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm happy to hear your voice, sir. I was happy for you this weekend. It was good to see you so emotional and moved. And I've told you before, I think that I've admired the man that you have become after football.
Well, it was a good weekend for my family. It was very busy. They rode me pretty hard as far as all the autographs and the pictures and one thing or another, but well worth the time.
I wanted to tell people your story, Jimmy. I think that they know it, but I'm fascinated almost, I think most, despite all the success, that you seem to be a lot happier after football, after coaching football, than you were while coaching football.
Well, yeah, I think that's true, Dan. I used to say the happiest time of my life, the most fun, was my 5 years at University of Miami. I love, living in South Florida. Of course, we had tremendous success, and it was just a fun time. But the most fun time of my life is right now. I'm closer to my family than I've ever been. I am still involved with football with Fox NFL Sunday, and plus I'm living in the Florida Keys. Well, how could it get any better?
I don't know that I could have imagined though, Jimmy, the monster that football sort of made you so to be a titan, to be a successful leader. I couldn't have imagined a Jimmy Johnson who was a present and loving dad. It would have been hard for you to imagine too, I imagine.
Yeah, and Dan, the hours that I was working and really the tension and the stress that I was under coaching and working around the clock every day of the year and never taking time off for my family, it really caused some problems. My youngest son struggled, when I wasn't there, and really I wasn't as close to my family as what I should have been. And so even though I had tremendous success, in football, I didn't have tremendous success with my family. And so, pulling back, and now I'm still involved with football, but my two sons and my two daughter-in-laws, and Rhonda, we are all as close can be, and we have fun with each other, and it's a different lifestyle now.
I love to hear it, Jimmy, and I'm curious if I can ask you this without being invasive, but you say it caused some problems as if you're not being present as a father because your son's struggles with addictions have been public and the work he does to help others with addiction now has been public. Do you blame yourself for anything that happened there because you weren't around?
Well, I don't know that I blame myself, but I really feel like had I been there more for him, maybe we could have prevented some of those problems. And I didn't even realize he had a problem until he was just so far down that it was difficult to turn him around. So, maybe I could have, maybe nipped it in the bud before it got to be a problem.
Where and how did Jimmy Johnson learn to tell his sons that he loved them? Because that was something I remember I wrote a lot of profiles about you and did a lot of reporting, and you were a bit of a mercenary robot football leader, CEO, chewing glass all the time. Where did you learn how to do some of that stuff?
Well, Dan, and of course, a lot of people can relate to this because there's a lot of people out there that's got family members or friends or people that they're close to that struggle with addiction. Um, Laying in bed at night, just crying my eyes out, saying to myself, I would give any amount of money in the world if somehow, some way, I knew how to correct the problem. Uh, that's when I realized, if things ever got better, he was going to know that I loved him.
Can you look back on your University of Miami days and just take us through some of that stuff that made it your best experience in in football, really, right? Because it was your most, I don't understand why you always said that it was more joyous than winning with the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, really, I think the relationship I had with the players, in college football and professional football are so different. Um, the length of the season, the financial, situation with professional players, the agents. College football, the head coach is more of a mentor and in some ways a substitute father figure. You spend a tremendous amount of time counseling players. They're young kids. They've left home for the first time in their life. They're out on their own. They've got to take the responsibility of really, gauging their time, getting up in the morning, going to class, getting an education, dealing with their girlfriend, dealing with being away from home. So the head coach really spends a tremendous amount of time with the individuals, the young kids, making sure they're on the right path. And I like that. I really enjoyed that, and especially since we had so many inner city kids. When I went to Miami, there was just slightly over 50% of them graduated. By adding so academic support system and counselors and mandatory study hall and mandatory class attendance, we had close to 90% graduate. And that number has stayed about the same ever since I left. So I took a lot of pride in that. And, I really enjoyed the relationship I had with the players, and especially players that have come from, maybe sparse means and come from difficult backgrounds. In professional football, you're dealing with agents, and they're playing for the money. It's a professional sport, so you don't have that relationship with the players. So that's why it was really different.
It's interesting to hear you say that, Jimmy, because you really did connect in that space with black players. You had a unique vantage point on the good work that you were doing, even as you had to have been going crazy, feeling like everything around you was totally misunderstood because of what you were seeing in those kids, what they were seeing in those kids. And then it became about a handful of arrests and the Catholics versus convicts. But you've got a bunch of kids out there that's as close as you've been to loving players, right? You didn't love your players in the pros like that.
Well, I don't know. Love's a hard word to define, to be honest with you. I think you have different kinds of love. Now, you have love for your family. You have love for your wife. You have love for people you deal with. You have love for friends. And I think all of them are different.
Can you take us through what you viewed as your worst time at Miami? Like when you recall it was the happiest time that you had, but what didn't feel like that?
Well, that first year was difficult. I had to, the way I accepted the job is I was going to retain the previous staff. And those staff members did not know me. They did not know my style. I didn't know them. Three of them that had applied for the job found out 5 minutes before I got there that they did not get the job, and instead it'll be this stranger from Oklahoma State. That was a little difficult. And then, I pretty well accepted that, we were going to just make it through that season somehow. And, it eventually unraveled at the end of the year. But I was able to correct that. And so the worst time was either, at the end of the first year or, of course, the Penn State game where I did the worst job of coaching that I've ever done in my life.
You say that all the time like you haven't forgiven yourself. You really do. You say the worst job of coaching because of how much better you guys were than that Penn State team. It was 7 turnovers or something, right?
Right. And that's, I should have prevented that. And, had I made different decisions, maybe the better team would have won. And that would have been University of Miami, and that would have been another national championship and another undefeated season.
You don't have a greater regret than that one, do you, professionally?
No, there's nothing close. That was the worst game that I was ever involved in, and the most disappointing game that I was ever involved in. And you know what, Dan? It probably made me a better coach. After that, it was full throttle. After that, my foot never left the pedal. I never took a chance. You know, regardless who we were playing, a bad team, a good team, I really didn't pay any attention to it. I prepared our team as well as I could prepare them, and we tried to beat them as bad as we could beat them. I never, I never took a chance after that ball game.
You got criticized for that too, though. You got criticized for running up the score. Was that before the Fiesta Bowl, where Notre Dame and they ran television, they were owning television, and you were criticized because your third stringer blocked a punt and you made Jerry Faust look bad?
I'll take criticism for running up the score anytime, rather than be on the other side and have the score run up on me.
What were the best and most emotional parts of the weekend for you, Jimmy? Because I imagine your vantage point now is something that fills you with great gratitude, and you can look back nostalgically and lovingly at all the things that your leadership birthed.
I just got off the phone with Terry Bradshaw, and I told him, I said, the worst part of the weekend was when I got there, I had 4.5 hours of signing autographs. That, and plus I did go to 2 party functions to where there were, probably 500 or 600 people at each one of them, and I ended up signing autographs and taking pictures. And the reason why it was the worst, because there were people in the room that I hadn't seen in 25 years, and I wanted to spend time with them and talk to them, but I couldn't talk to them because I spent the whole time signing autographs and taking pictures. So that was the worst time. The best time, we had 3 different days, and the night after the function, there was my 2 sons and their wives, my 2 daughter-in-laws, my wife Rhonda and her girlfriend, Dave Wonstead and his wife, Tony Wise, North Turner and his wife, and Rich Dalrymple. Just our group. We got together, we had lunch, we had drinks, we told stories, we laughed, we cut up, just had a great time. But we did that on 3 different occasions, and that was the best part of the whole weekend.
Those are the lifelong friends, right, that football gave you. That's your crew from the Miami days.
That's the crew that started with me at back at University of Pittsburgh, to Oklahoma State, to University of Miami, to Dallas Cowboys, some to the Miami Dolphins. That's been my crew for a long time, and we had some great stories. And you talked about love. There's different kinds of love. I love those guys. And obviously having my 2 sons and my wife there to be part of it was a special time.
It has been really cool to watch the way your love for Terry Bradshaw has grown. The idea that you could have a friend like that, and what's that conversation like when you're talking to him? You're just reliving the weekend again because you guys you don't have a better friend than that, right?
Nick Christen, and by the way, Nick Christen and his wife Felicia, she was right. They were both right there with us on every step of the way too. In fact, Nick Christen he rode in the convertible in the parade with me. So yeah, Nick Christen and Terry Bradshaw, my 2 best friends, and I had a great time. Of course, Terry is a piece of work, and people really can't understand how the 2 of us are so close. But when it's just the 2 of us, we have some great talks, and we laugh and cut up, and we really enjoy one another.
Jimmy, it is hard to understand because they're looking at the person you used to be, I think, and that they're not looking at the person who, as an adult, made a friend in the new version of yourself. Did Terry Bradshaw know the previous incarnation of you?
Oh, Terry's talked about it all the time. In fact, Troy Aikman was with us on that little group as well, and Troy and Terry have talked about it, about how I am different. But like I told Troy and like I told Terry, back then it was my responsibility to get that team ready to play. Bill Belichick and I had this conversation after he won the first Super Bowl. I said, you're the only guy that's got the hammer. If you're going to win your second one, which he did, and won many, many more, I said, really, those, especially in pro football, assistant coaches get to be friends with the players. Some of them are about the same age, or even younger than some of the players. And if you don't watch it, after you've had success, they'll let them slide. I remember my great running back coach, Joe Bradshaw, who I love to death. Bless his soul, he's not with us anymore. But after Emmitt Smith held out one year for 2 weeks, we were getting ready for the third game of the season, and Joe was just wearing this backup running back Derek Classic out, and Emmitt wasn't getting any reps. I said, Joe, get Emmitt in there, get him ready to play. He said, oh, Coach, he's a veteran. He'll be ready on Sunday, which didn't sit well with me. You can't let these veterans slide. And I said, told Belichick, I said, hey, you're the only guy that's got the hammer. You can't just rely on your assistants, because at times they'll let them slide. I couldn't ever let our players slide. I couldn't ever let them slide to where we would have a Penn State type game. I wanted to cover all the bases.
I can't believe, I did not know that about you, Jimmy, that basically you became the unbearable hard-ass pusher past the limits because of the shame and embarrassment of, I cost the better team the game in the Fiesta Bowl. It is a loss that will haunt me the rest of my life.
You're right on target, Dan. And just for instance, there before one of the Super Bowls, we already had the playoffs, sewed up, and we played at Washington, and we flopped around. We just played so poorly, turned the ball over, and on the plane going back to Dallas, they started to serve the food, and I said, no, you're not serving food. I said, they don't deserve to eat. I said, so I told the flight attendants to sit back down and not serve food. Well, obviously the players were really upset with me. But one came into my office the next morning, and he said, Jimmy, he said, God, don't you think you're a little hard on them? We already got the playoffs sewed up. And I said, when they lose, I want them to hurt. I don't care if they're mad at me. I don't care what they think of me. I want to cause some emotion with them. I don't want them to accept losing. If they'd have won the ball game, hey, no holds barred. They do whatever the hell they want to do. But if they lose, I want them to hurt. And so I made them hurt. And I made them mad.
Mike Ryan, do you have back there a sound that'll make him happier of Terry Bradshaw talking about one of the most embarrassing movie scenes in the history of his life?
I go back to my trailer to get my robe, and I look on my bed, and there's 3 penis socks. One is about 18 inches long, one is about 12 inches long, and one is about 4 inches long. And I'm looking, and I'm going, you have got to be kidding me. I got to pick one of these and put on my penis. And I went, holy cow. Now, if I take the big one, everybody in the world knows that that's just no way that that's possible. I got horses that couldn't fill that thing out. So I said, if I take the little one, they're going to laugh at me because it's not very long. And I know the wardrobe people are going to gather around and go, which one did he go with? Obviously, I went with the middle one. And I put that stupid thing on. I got up there to do the scenes, and I had a penis sock on, and I've never been more uncomfortable in my life.
Well, you want me to finish that story? Because I've heard the story many times and told it many times, but there's an aftermath of that. He was doing the scene from Failure to Launch, and they had the one scene where he whips around from the aquarium, and Matthew McConaughey is supposed to be startled. And so they ran the scene. The director looked at Matthew and he said, "No, I want a good reaction when he whips around." And so they did it again. Matthew McConaughey still didn't have that startled look. So Terry says, "Hey, I'll give him a startled look." He took the sock off and whipped around.
Yes.
Matthew McConaughey said, "Oh my God!" And so that was a wrap.
So that is Terry Bradshaw bringing out the best actor in Matthew McConaughey. I want to cover with you, Jimmy. I've never asked you this because I think this was the period of greatest Jimmy Johnson. I don't give a bleep. You were doing advertisements for penis enhancers. And I'm like, Jimmy has really let go. He's like, I don't care what anybody thinks. Not that you ever cared what people thought very much.
Well, actually, Terry's the one that gave me that commercial. They first approached Terry to do it, and he was telling me about it, and he said, I just can't bring myself to doing it. I said, tell him to give me and Nick Christen a call. Hey, I'll be a spokesman. I'm ready.
Well, you have done, you have late in life, you've evolved with hobbies, right? You have kept, I know I've talked to you about Wayne Huizenga, the late owner of the Dolphins, and QTL, Quality Time Left. You said he would send you jet skis and remind you to enjoy the little things late in life. You've seen here that Bobby Bowden passed away here recently. And I don't know, can those things move you more these days, Jimmy, than they used to be able to get to you?
Well, you know, it's a different lifestyle now, and you know, I didn't know Bobby Bowden well. You know, obviously we competed against one another, but such a great man. You know, not only a great football coach, but just a great man. You know, someone that we all could admire. And then, you know, Wayne Huizenga, you know, the same thing. You know, really one of the finest men that I've ever known in my life. But he told me, he said, you know, quality time left. You know, just, you know, don't wait until it's too late when you got plenty of money, but you can't enjoy it because you're too old. And he said, you know, be sure and check out quality time left. So that really made an impact on my life.
What are the stories that can be told now, Jimmy, all these years later, about your last year with the Dolphins and where Wayne Huizenga was helpful to you because you were grieving the loss of your mother?
Yep. And then, you know, Wayne, you know, let me use his jet. I went to mother's funeral still during the season. I mean, it hit me pretty hard, as you know. And that's when I realized I really got to slow down and I got to take some time for my family because just like I said, you know, at my Hall of Fame induction speech, you know, that, you know, appreciate the people you love because there's going to come a day that you're not going to be able to do that.
How many teams since, Jimmy, have tried to persuade you to come back and lead their franchise? Oh,
Dan, you know, there for a while, quite a few teams that came down and checking to see if I wanted to go back into coaching. You know, back then when Tom Benson and Bob McNair and, you know, Jeffrey Lurie and, you know, Dean Spanos, they all have been down here. But then there was a period that it wasn't coaching. You know, they wanted me to come back either as a general manager or a consultant as far as the general manager. But now, you know, now it is, all they do is come down on advice. In fact, I'm going to get on the plane, go up to Jacksonville Wednesday. They're going to come down and pick me up, and I'm going to go watch practice and visit with Urban and probably talk to the team. But, yeah, so now it's more of consulting down from the Keys than it is actually working 12 months out of the year.
Oh, you're still not ready to do that. No matter how much they pay you, leave the Keys for Jacksonville, no matter how many private planes they send. I'm surprised you're still doing that instead. I would suspect that you'd rather be on the boat in the morning.
Yeah, but I'm doing it as a favor to Urban. Urban's been down here, and we've known each other. I took him and his son Nate fishing back about 10 years ago, and he worked with us at Fox. And, you know, I've talked to him quite a few times when he's getting ready to, you know, he turned down Texas, and then again when he ended up taking the Jacksonville job. So I'm doing it as a favor for Urban.
What did you tell him about turning down Texas and taking the Jacksonville job? What is the advice of a guy who has been the biggest and the best in both worlds?
Well, you know, we just talked about, you know, the strains of recruiting and one thing or another, and actually, you know, we actually compared it, you know, to going into professional football as well. And I didn't actually give him my feeling about what he should do. I just talked to him about the pros and cons of both positions.
So what would be the conundrum on something like Texas? Is it not the greatest of the programs? I'm sure they would have paid him more money than any college coach was being paid.
I don't think I don't think he saw the challenge that Jacksonville gives him, and I think he wanted the challenge of professional football. He's accomplished everything he could accomplish in college football, and so he wants the challenge of professional football.
You didn't dare counsel him. Don't do it anymore, you idiot. Get out, run for your life. Spend your money on a beach somewhere.
I wouldn't use those words, but I just talked to him and talked to him about how difficult it was going to be.
Were any of those offers, Jimmy, in any way tempting? Over all the years, was Jimmy ever close to coming back, or once you were finished, you were finished?
Once I was finished, I was finished. I realized, as much time as I'd spent away from my family, there was nothing that was going to get me back.
Can you explain to us your relationship with Troy Aikman? Because you talk about different kinds of love, and I see love there.
Yeah, Troy. Well, of course, I was in Troy's home when he was a sophomore in high school. And so I've known him for a long, long time. We had some tension when I first went to Dallas because, I had Steve Walsh and, I had to walk the fence. I knew that Troy was my guy, but I couldn't, outwardly say that because I wanted to trade Steve Walsh. And I ended up getting a 1, 2, and a 3 for Steve. But after I traded Steve, I was able to bond with Troy, and we have built up a really great relationship. He's a great friend. And obviously he was a great player, and he helped us win Super Bowls. But I think my value to him right now, as far as what I look at him, he's a better friend than he was great player.
I love that you still remember, Jimmy. I got a 1 and a 2 and a 3 for Steve Walsh. I love that you just.
I remember those trades because they were important to winning games.
What are your favorite of those? Give me a couple of the trades that you remember. I got away with one there.
Well, moving up to get Emmitt Smith, I moved up. I think 3 or 4 spots to get him. That was big. I was able to sign Russell Maryland, with really about fourth or fifth pick money. But I worked out a deal to where we could take him number 1, so I got who I needed to fill in with our defense. The trade for Charles Haley was huge. He helped us helped the Cowboys win 3 Super Bowls. Taking Zach Thomas in the 5th round, I knew I wanted Jason Taylor and Sam Madison, and I'm, really working in the 2nd round, and so I was able to take Sam Madison and then wait until the 3rd round and move up and get Jason. So there's some of the better moves I made.
Is there one above all others that stands out as, oh man, I screwed that one up?
Yeah, actually, not making the trade. I could have made a trade. It would have taken my entire, draft board, but I could have made a trade to move up to get Peyton Manning. In fact, I talked to Peyton and Archie about it this weekend.
Tell us more about that. I want to hear some more of these details.
Well, that's all the details I can give you. I think I probably said too much already.
All right. Jimmy, it is really nice to see, honestly, I've told you this before, and I'll tell the audience this. I couldn't have imagined many years ago. I've learned a lot from this man. I could not have imagined when I was walking across his Green Tree practice field one day, just at the University of Miami as a student, and he kicked me off his field. He ran over in those tight orange shorts, way too tight, way too short, and told me to get off the field. I would learn from him. I would make him mad on occasion, and then years later, when I drive back from the Keys, I have a beer with him at that wonderful guest house on that wonderful property. I just could never have imagined that all of this stuff would have happened so that you would have been so much softer, so much kinder late in life because football and life taught you so many things.
Well, Dan, the next time you hear of someone that played for an undefeated national championship in college, that coached an undefeated national champion in college, who won back-to-back Super Bowls and is in the Broadcasting Hall of Fame. If you hear of anybody that's done all those things, give me a call.
And the football, now the Football Hall of Fame. I can't believe, Jimmy, one of the things to I forgot to ask you, take me through how you and Jerry repaired some of this. I never thought I would see the day where you guys would stop the stupid stuff and the petty stuff and be like, all right, enough. We're old enough now. Just honor me the way I deserve to be honored.
Well, I think everything's fine. But like I said on the show, he was talking about doing it, and I asked him, is he going to do it while I'm alive? So let's wait and see.
All right, fair enough. It's not quite it's not quite repaired yet, and you still don't trust him. Is the larger point? You're not. And with good reason. And with good reason, you don't trust him, because what happened there was epically stupid. You should have still been the coach of the Cowboys.
Whatever. I'm happy now, Dan.
Good talking to you, Jimmy. Thanks for catching up. Thanks for making the time.
Okay, thank you. Good talking with you, Dan.